Hey folks, this is Tolly and welcome to some more game dev. Coming back again today, looking at some screen improvements, I think is what we're going to be working on. We'll see. I think that's probably the largest kind of area that needs work. I haven't done a stream for a couple of days. We had called out at the end of the last stream on Sunday that I was going to be working on getting a build on Steam over a couple of days, and I wasn't sure how long that was going to take, and I wanted to do all that off camera because it was going to be a bunch of doc reading. I think, so Monday we did a like standalone build, which was not on Steam, but just getting a build up and running again. And then Tuesday I did a bunch of reading of some of the Steam docs and then uploaded a Steam build, which is still private. The page is not public or anything like that, but I did go through setting up that and, figuring all that stuff out. I'm not really going to be able to show that on camera right now, but at some point soon, fingers crossed, we can show that running in the Steam client. Not that that's really that big of an accomplishment, but I wanted to figure it out and I wasn't sure how to do it. Turned out it wasn't too bad. Lots of YouTube tutorials and stuff made it pretty straightforward. So we're coming back now. Yesterday I kind of stayed off camera, mostly just reviewing the game and bug fixing, trying to get my head on straight for what we need to do next. Drixie played through the build yesterday and a bit today, and gave a lot of really good notes. And I think the biggest thing that was pointed out really is that the skill screen just hasn't gotten any attention in a long time. And if you don't know how to use it, it is actually very confusing. So I think that's probably the most important thing we need to look at today, is just taking a pass on that. There's still a few cutscenes that I have not set up yet. They're all created, dialogues written for them, but I need to build them. I'm less concerned about that long term. If we run over and we don't get everything done by the end of my vacation, which we're on the final week now, we've only got really a handful of days until I go back to work on Monday. So we may not reach a fully complete chapter 1, but if we have to do a few cutscenes and maybe a little bit of balance tuning over the following week, I'm not too concerned about that. Things that I want to dig into though are bigger, overwhelming problems, things that are going to require me to maybe think on them for the next few days. And I think the skill screen is kind of that last major thing. Everything else is kind of just working, but this one has a number of problems. Number one, I don't know if it's entirely clear that each of these sections are related to this specific ability. These should really be like sword, mace. This should even be a shield. The icon isn't correct here. And then magic should have like a staff icon because we're moving towards magic instead of bow. And then when it comes to the actual unlocks in here, this whole screen is just become more complicated as we've added like this concept of crystals being required to unlock these nodes, and it doesn't say that anywhere on this screen. It just says cost of 1, and that cost isn't even clear that that's like the SP cost, and then the crystal requirement is completely invisible. Not to mention all of this UI just looks kind of bad because it's kind of from old Heir of Ember stuff and hasn't really gotten a redesign for infinite retries. So that all being said, let's take a look at that screen, because this will be a little bit of archaeology and try and figure out, how does this work? How did I build this system? Right, so there's stuff that's invisible here too. So in the original setup, there was the Heir of Ember's version of the game that we've kind of pivoted away from and gone, well, not pivoted, we've left on the back burner as we've kind of focused on infinite retries, had more of a party system. And so the idea was that you would be able to toggle between the different characters here, but that's no longer necessary. So this section of the UI is, honestly could be removed, and it's probably going to be the simpler process here rather than trying to keep everything around. We're probably better off trying to clean up at this stage. Yeah, so this is the stats background, and it has the skill unit toggle. What is referencing this? The unit component here is displaying the name of the character, I don't think we need to show Hero's name here. Again, because we only have one character in infinite retries, this whole section seems a bit silly. And this is just showing all the stats. And then we used to show the character portrait, but we haven't updated the system to actually show Hero here. All right, and it looks like I was using one of the faces. I don't know if I still want that or not. Okay, there's going to be a little bit of exploration here as we try and figure out what we want to do. If we delete this whole thing, this is what it currently looks like in Engine. This should be simplified in some way. Yeah, I think this background could just be a lot smaller. The piece that's still missing here is also like the HP. Okay, how do we break this up? What are the actual nodes that we have in Engine? So if we look at the node loader, let's load / loadability. Currently we show health. We're repeating an icon right now for stagger abilities, or stagger power, ability power, and stagger damage multiplier. Those are all related to improving this individual ability. And then we have stat nodes that are increasing the character's like attack and defense values, but these are not happening to the ability as much as they are happening to the character. So I guess we need two different info boxes. We want an info box about the ability, which is kind of what we're showing down here and up here. And then we want information about the character and the character stats. How do we make that clear? Where are these stat crystals coming from? Because right now there's essentially an item tied to each node type. So if we look at these, how are these generated? These are generated based off display item component. Are these just a generic component? They don't have any... Yeah, they're just a screen component. They don't actually need to take any data because we tell it which item to display. Okay, so these could be anywhere and tied to any system. Do we have crystal icons? No, I don't have those. I know Drixie did that work. I just don't think I have it on my computer at this time. Are these using any kind of layout? They are not. They are just manually placed. Yeah, okay. I think what I want to do is I want to make it so each of these have a crystal associated with them. So if this is the attack text on the left, I think I want to have another value here One of these is using a vertical layout group. Okay. Does this control the width of this? No. So these can be whatever size we want. Okay. This is fine. So then what we'll do is we're going to add the crystal count text. And we're going to add a image, which will be the crystal icon. Let's go make the crystal icon. I want to generate this asset somewhere in the Infinite Retries art folders. So that's going to be way up here. Some of the skill tree stuff is in this folder. Yeah, so if I go... open this, and then file new. How big do we want this object? It needs to fit within this banner, and this banner is currently 10 high. So I'm gonna guess that we're gonna have to try and make something that's 8 by 8 pixels, which is basically non-existent. Wait, maybe we could use the telegraph crystals for this for today. These might be about the right size. Yeah, pretty close. What is this size? Why is it going 12.5? No, it's definitely 8 by 8. Yeah, this is almost a little small, but that should give us good placement. So then I want the attack text to be further to the right. Let's say it's 50. And then the stack counting number can be left aligned. And say like 5 pixels in from the edge. That'll do. And then in terms of width, it doesn't need to be nearly this crazy. Maybe we max out items at about 99. So if we're saying that, then 12 width would be about right. And then attack doesn't have to go as... Oh no, we want the crystal in between. So then we're going to show the crystal icon from top left aligned, 0 and 1. We'll do -1, and then we'll bring this into 18. Looks close. $50 looks fine. And then the attack stat number remains the same. Okay, so then once we've done that, then we just need to do the same thing for the other ones. And it's probably going to be faster to just delete them. I'm going to turn them off just as we set this up. Yeah. And we're going to make these more generic. And this becomes magic. This becomes resist. We need to change these names as well, so this becomes magic. Do I want to go with... We could make this even smaller if we went with the 3-letter variants of these. Let's see if we can get away with that. Still not 100% sure if we're even going to have a speed stat. But I'm going to keep adding it in expectation that we do. And then luck, which I'm also not 100% sure we need, but I kind of want more stats. And then each of these would be a different crystal for these stats, I think. And they'll need to match the crystal you're finding on the ground. Now, the spacing between these could be shorter if we're doing the 3 characters. Something like 60 seems fine. So each of these gets updated. Like so. And then the whole thing doesn't need to be as long. Sure, let's go with 64. Okay, so that's the stat information. If we put in 1, that looks a little odd. I think we actually want to have these right aligned, like so. That gives us more dead space on the left, but I'm fine with that. Worst case, we can do 0, 1. Or we change the kerning of these so that they're evenly spaced. But that's definitely more of a polish thing. Let's just change all these to 0, 0 for now. Now, what else do we need to show here? We need to show the amount of NP that character has and the amount of HP that character has. That is not shown anywhere in here. I also want to show stats up here and a larger font. What is the Blade Shock? That is the skill title? That's skill selection. Ability toggle? That's power 10. Background, character name. Okay. If I steal this piece of text and we copy it in here, can we place this in the stat section? This will need to have a layout group element and ignore layout group. This got its height flipped, so we'll make it regular. I actually want this here, then we don't need the layout group actually. Do center. This can say stats. Okay, I don't mind that. And then can we shrink the size of this while keeping this centered? Because it doesn't need to take up as much room, I don't think. We need to update the components. So each of these need to point towards the stat numbers. So instead of this being defense stats, this can be This one. Oh, I see why I gave them each unique name, so it was easier to see them and make sure we had the right one hooked up, but not a huge deal. Okay, we're going to remove the portrait for now. We can always add it back if we need to. But I like the simpler version here. Now for HP and MP, normally that is shown via the stopwatch UI. We show the player's health here and the amount of crystals, MP crystals that they have charged up. We can't show it in that exact same formatting. I do think I want to show them as I want to show them in a different format for sure. Let's play with one of these. Let's add a new one at the bottom. Let's increase the width by, or the height of this by double. So make it 20. We need to raise this whole section up a bit. No, not that one. This is all over the place. This formatting is awful. I need to do like a whole pass on UI, I think, in general. Okay, so then if this is the luck stat down here, this becomes our HP stat. We might want this at the top instead. Interesting, that breaks if we do that. Okay, we need to change this one to be 20. I see. So the background needs to be stretch. This is the value we need to be modifying. And then from here, we can do HP. And then can we move the stat number to be -10 and then position it at the same X offset as this value, which is 5. Assuming that this is the same. Okay, so then it's aligned like that. What if we align it with the HP text? And if we did value out of value, it's not super readable. Is there a different box that we could use that's just simpler? We're currently using this divider banner. That's a massive image. I don't want to use that one. That makes the text unreadable. Then it becomes too similar to the background color. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. Okay. We'd have to do this for MP as well. What's interesting about MP is we have a fixed number of MP values. So this one could just be like the crystals represented in some way. Like, it's possible that maybe this whole UI should be like the clock that we're using. Just like displayed here as like a half clock. Really, I should be going through this with Drixie and making some decisions. So I think for today, we're just going to get all of this displaying the correct information in a condensed, simplified form. And then I can go through it with Drixie and try and decide, is there a better way of doing this? I want to align this with this element. What is this element? It's the node info box. It is from -4. So we do -4 on this one. And actually, I think it wants to be a little higher. Yeah, because that way the top line here matches, not the frill. Okay. This needs to be a little higher, or a little more height. And then this can be shrunk down to 80, it looks like. And still fits. The text is overlapping with the border a little bit. So we could do 82. And then can this go down to like 32? Very condensed. If I grab this detail header, divider banner. If we grab this, let's load the default palette. What's another color that's close to this one? Somewhere in here, I think. Well, not close, but close in hue, I think, would be the right way to say it. I just want to see what happens if we kind of break the stats up with a differentiating color. So if we go attack, then defense is dividing banner 2. Resistance, dividing banner 2. And then luck, dividing banner 2. Yeah, I like the way that reads a little more. These two end up being basically the same color. What if we use dividing banner 2? I like that more with the gray tint. Again, all of this should get real assets, but sure. Let's say good. And then MP will start as 0, 0. And we're going to need to add some components here for tracking these. So we need stat-based components. Stat component. Same as this one. Right, but we give it 2 values. So we do HP, MP, and we want to display that in the stat number with this separator between the two values. That's how we do this. Stat component, add to, MP, max MP, and we give it this stat as the component. Cool. So that should display the character stat information. When it comes to the crystals, we should be able to get rid of this whole section down here now if we have each crystal tied to each stat. How did we say that that was being shown? Crystal background. Each of these have a display component. I did some modifications recently that I think allows a data-driven parent component to also find any generic subcomponents and handle and manage those as well. Yes. So I believe we can just add all of the components in here for item display. I want to know the exact name. What was the components? Display item component. So if we come into here and we do display item component, we should be able to drag each of the crystal count texts into here, and we just need to give it the name of the item that it should be displaying. So let me bring up the design data. Items. That's going to be these ones. So we need HP node, defense node, strength node, speed. We don't have an MP node one yet, so I'll need to create one. But for now, we have HP. Do the same thing again. We can bring this into here. I'm going to just repeat the HP one because we don't have an MP one yet. Attack gets a crystal count of strength. Perfect. Defense gets crystal count, and that becomes defense node is the name of the item. Magic, crystal count. We do not have a magic node either, or a resist node. You know what? Let's just add these. So we'll come into here. We're going to copy this whole row. We're going to move this down to here. We're going to name this magic. It will have the name magic crystal when you pick it up. Insert below. Resist node. This will have the name resist crystal. And then finally insert below MP node. Okay, I'm going to download that as a TSV over top of our items TSV. Here. We can see that they are added. And then if we do item IT parsers, item parser, and then check game foundations, which is what we're using for managing this, we can now see there are entries for those extra crystal keys. Perfect. This should work. Now we go back to here. I'm going to even just do it in here because I think it's going to be just easier to see because it's taking up more space. So that's the MP. strength. This becomes magic. Copy, paste component as new. This goes to the resist crystal count, not image. Resist. Display item. Speed. And finally, luck. Speed node is actually this, which is inconsistent. And we actually don't have a luck node. Add that one. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? I'm going to rename speed to be correct. We'll see what happens here. Parse that in. I'm not seeing any errors. Game foundation, inventory. Speed crystal is now speed crystal. Is there 2 entries? No, my system deletes anything that is not in that spreadsheet. It's interesting. If we get rid of these top sections, because we're not currently using anything up here, these aren't real. That means if I delete these, they'll go away. I don't think I want to do that right now, though, because they're good examples, even if they're not in use in the engine. Okay, and then this finally becomes luck, capital, lowercase. And then that should allow us to see everything displaying on this screen. How far away is the... This is 4 pixels from the top. If we go into here, make this top right. That puts it at the same position. This means we shouldn't need this anymore. You know, I'm going to do something a little bit random, but I'm going to actually see if we can do something very quickly here. This might derail us pretty heavily, but if we go into here, we should have a pause screen somewhere, right? Pause screen components. If we just add this in here, what would it take to have this information on our pause screen? Like when we bring up the skill screen, that stat information is just being plugged in here into the skill info box. Here, so if we take this and copy it over to the pause screen, what needs to be done in order for this to display properly? It needs to be initialized and then using the current unit. On open, initialize. Unit info box. This one just has to call refresh. Am I looking at the wrong object here? No, that is definitely this one. So inside of here, skill info box is a unit data driven parent component, but all we do is call initialize on it. But it needs to be updated with a specific unit. Oh, that happens on select. Oh, there must be some magic happening here. Where does on select get called? Oh, interesting. I see what's happening. So again, this system used to have multiple units, but there's a bit of a hack I'm doing here where I'm basically populating a list of units here that we never show the player, and that list of units has one unit in it. And so when it populates that list, it auto updates the selection to be the first one, and then when this first one is selected, it is calling this on select call, which is updating the skill box. Okay, so that all being the case, I think all we need to do then is call initialize and then update with the current unit. How does this get the current unit? When it gets opened, it's getting passed in as information from the back end. Let's get you the unit persistent data. This call is literally doing nothing. I'm just calling it and letting it like not be set to anything. So the unit is definitely coming in as an argument for opening this skill screen. Sorry, I need to figure out how this opens. So if we come into here, we call interact open skill screen. That's an ability. And I'm assuming that ability is just... Where are you located? Oh, you're up here in this interaction folder. Weird. Okay. So when you call open screen... Oh, it gets who's interacting. Get target. So we're not going to be able to find the unit in the same way. Can we do dungeon manager of some kind? Player dungeon manager? Where is this normally accessed from? The dungeon state manager. Can we get the current unit from here? We spawn the units. We pass that information in. Yeah, we never use this to get the unit. Anytime anything ever tries to access the unit, it's because the unit has interacted, and then we know when the interaction happens which unit is interacting, or the tile has been stepped on and the tile knows which unit has stepped on it. So very rarely do we ever need to just get... Or this might be the first time we're running into a situation where we want to get the player unit. Without it just being through normal board interactions. We definitely get player, though. There are spots where we are able to access the player via an entity ID. So the player is always tagged, I'm pretty sure. Always tagged with player. Okay. Bit of a hack. Well, not a hack, but just not a super clean way. But we can use our entity management system and we can instance... Nope. Instance, please. No. Instance. Thank you. Get entity by ID. Find the player. And then do get component unit. And then we can save that as our current player unit. And we can pass in the information we want to update on the pause screen. We haven't even tested this on the skill screen, so it may have been a bit silly for me to go try and port it over to a different screen immediately. But I wanted to do this, so I did. So if we come into, say, one of these scenes, what's a random scene that doesn't have a lot going on? J7. J7's a very basic scene. Let's just enter in here and see if we bring up the pause screen, if those stats are filled in. We also have nothing in our inventory in Game Foundations. But as soon as I hit pause... Oh, we didn't actually finish hooking it up. Go back into the pause prefab, which is somewhere way down here. We do not have a button to go to the screens very easily. Pause. Click on the screen and then drag the stats in here. Now it should load. Cool. There is some stuff messed up. I have misassigned something. The speed crystal was pointing at the wrong one. Might want to turn this into a prefab at some point. That way it is the same across both of these screens. Yeah, I like that idea. So if we put this in here, this can be stats background. And then if we go back over into skills, we can save this. We can have it so that this one uses the same prefab. And we'll just need to make sure to hook it up here and here. This one was -4. This one was -3. Okay. Yeah, lots of derailing today. Now, next problem I'm seeing is we don't give enough room for the actual HP and MP values, it does not look like. Yeah, this needs to be much wider. It should be able to go to the full extent here. Does that give us room for how many digits? Not quite. Maybe that's better. Maybe we just set these up like this. Yeah, I don't think we'd ever go up that high, but we can. Yeah, this whole thing needs a pass, but let's say that's fine. So if we go back over here where we can get access to the skill screen very quickly. We should now see our stats displaying here. Nothing is overflowing, and we have 0 for all of our crystals for all of these stats. This is super muddy, so immediately on setup, I'm realizing this doesn't look great just because of the amount of clutter it's creating. Let's see if it functions. So if we come into here, let's exit out of the screen and then change our... Oh, this is not visible for folks. Okay, so if we bring this over here, we can see all of the different crystals that the game is adding. Whenever we try and check a crystal, it essentially creates one. That's why we have all of them displayed here with 0. But this is what's technically in Hero's inventory. So we make this like a 3, this a 1, leave some of these as 0s. This can be a 5, 7. We're just going to make sure all of these are being displayed correctly. This can be like 10, and we'll make luck 99. Okay. I shouldn't have to actually save or anything. I think the debugger just works. Yeah, and we can now see those stats. I do want to validate that they are correct. I should have docked the debugger. Yeah, now we have to reopen all these. Can I use the alt controls? I can. So 3, 1, 0, 2, 5, 7, 10, 99. That all looks correct to me. Okay, so we now have all of the stats displaying and having them check the inventory items to see what your count of each associated stat crystal is. Next problem is we have a series of stat crystals for power increases. We're not currently showing stagger power anywhere on the ability. We only show power, and we're not showing stagger damage multiplier, which is very wordy, and we probably should find a better, shorter term for that, like impact or something. This feels odd to me, these being separated. If we go back a page, each of your skill points are tied to your abilities. This is showing slash, bash, defend, magic. These should actually be showing like sword, mace, shield, and staff. Oh, that's funny. It's almost all S. Sword, shield, staff once they're renamed. Mace will be the only one that isn't. That's just a weird coincidence. But anyways, so then Maybe instead of showing SP tied to the ability, maybe there should be some section that's displaying the category. So this is a sword ability. So maybe we should have like sword and then the amount of SP you have from sword. And then this... Oh, I remember now. So the reason this is separate from this is because this information isn't actually related to the ability level. It's actually related to the node. So this is showing what information about the node we currently have selected. So it costs 1 SP, and this is its description of what this node is doing. Should these be tooltips? Yeah. This is information about the ability node you have selected. This is information about the ability itself, so slash and its power. SP is no longer tied to the ability, it's tied to the family, essentially, that it's a part of. So I think SP should be broken out into its own group. So we have 4 sections. We have the stats for the player, we have information about the ability, we have information about the node, and we have information about the SP for that family group. Okay, how do we break that up? We need to go to skill database or to game UI database. It's time to reference gather. Let's see, skill trees. How do we want to do this? Okay, so lots of these have like information about the board. Okay, but this one has it like a tooltip. What is Dragon Ball Z doing? I'm assuming that these are each displaying the node. And this is doing it as a tooltip. And it moves around the board. It looks like it's right aligned. That one was doing it just on the left. But see, I feel like it makes more sense when the only thing you're displaying is the skill. Then you can just have it anywhere. But when you have lots of information or different categories of information, I feel like it gets trickier. Okay. What do we do? What do we do? What does Final Fantasy X do? Show me Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy X. How does the sphere grid work again? I look at this all the time, and yet constantly I must re-look at it. Sorry, one second, just finding it. Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy. X. Oh, I see. I clicked on find within screenshots, but what I want is a screenshot. Okay. It just shows it on the top, like what I'm already doing. Raises strength by 2. Okay. So this is maybe fine. What's weird about this is the cost associated with it. Okay, what if we do... What if we disable the cost for now? What if we pull the cost out? What if we bring this node info to the bottom instead? Doesn't matter. I don't know how much any of this matters. Let's break this out into 2 pieces. Let's make this tree info. And tree info is going to show the SP. But is not going to show the power. And this is going to be the category essentially. So this will be something like sword. Right? Right. And then oh, I don't know if I can spell category right now. There's an E in there somewhere I'm missing. No? Oh, it's just okay, well, it could be A or E. I didn't read much further than what Google said. Trying to think of a way of flipping this, but maybe it's fine. Okay, I'm gonna have this be still driven by an ability spec data component, but instead of showing ability spec name, we're gonna make a new component which will show its parent spec, which in this case will be like slash essentially. I am starting to feel like maybe I should make a category section. Like, it feels like I have to write this a lot, and this is all a bit of a hack where I just made one of my abilities essentially the main parent ability, but I feel like there is room for like a category section class that could be used to great effect here, but just not quite ready to make that jump yet, because it's going to be a fair amount of refactoring. So in these situations, when we show this, is this the same thing we're essentially doing up here too with swords? How is this being updated? Because this definitely changes. Something is modifying this skill group. Yeah, it's just changing the ability spec name. Are these just manually being created? Yeah, it's just finding slash bash defend. And I'm assuming if this gets in... I'm assuming if this takes in null, it just doesn't do anything. Oh, I'm relying on these individual components to handle that. Yeah, if it finds null, then it does not update. Okay. Sure. So right now when we have a parent ability, we just give it the name of that parent ability. I think we need another column in here, which is parent name, which can be sword, mace, staff, shield for each of these. Download that. Go to our ability parser. Looking for the infinite retries variation. We added this after the parent ability, so this becomes now element 3. This becomes element 4. They all get incremented by 1, 6, 7, 8, 9. Perfect. And then instead of just having a parent ability, we're also going to have parent name, which will get saved in here as well. Only the parent abilities will have a parent name. And this is, again, all just a giant hack for the fact that we need to do... We really should just be building a category class, but we're just... Instead, just repurposing. Parsers, abilities. Go to our JSON files. Let's open this in VS Code. Perfect. Those have the pieces of information we need. Now, inside of these components, again, instead of using that, we should use parent name. Replace. And then in here, instead of doing .name, can we do parent name? No, because that information isn't stored inside of the ability spec. How does this normally get set? When we construct it, we just pass the data from the ability spec into here. Sure, we can do the same thing. Perfect. Good. Now we just need to update each of these to use this new component. And then we'll be displaying this information across the top. We could also hard code it, but I just don't want to. I'd rather just do this correctly, especially because we're going to need this exact same functionality down here, and it definitely can't be hard coded in that section. Okay. Then down here, we should be able to do the same thing inside of the category information. This should already be hooked up. So if I just put this over here in the corner for now, I want to figure out how to lay it out better, but let's just get all the information displaying, and then we can figure out better layouts afterwards. So now these are showing sword, mace, shield, magic. And if we go into this, this will say sword. Oh. Oh, we didn't hook it up. Well, yeah, it helps if we connect our references. We're going to need to go into here, and inside of the node skill screen, we're going to need another category for this one. Ability spec info box. Category info box. Seems good. Any other spots we're missing? Shoot. Undoed too many times. No, just creation, initialization, updating, and refreshing. Cool, and that's all we need. Then we'll just need to drag in the reference for the category into the script, and then we should be able to test it. Category info goes in here, save, and we should see sword, mace, shield, and staff when we go into the sub ability screens. Sword, mace, shield, staff. This one says magic. Why does this one say magic? Did I just not hook something up correctly? This should be skill group 2. Using parent spec name. It's definitely saying magic. If we exit and go back in, looks like it's not getting updated. It's group 4. Ah, because it's using some old code. So this needs to be shoot. That's the problem with hard coding. But at some level we have to decide, like, hey, this is our categories. Like, maybe I could build a system that tries to parse out all of the different parent abilities and then displays a grouping for each one and all of the other ability. Like, sure, but at some point it's just too much generic setup. Okay, so that's working. We are seeing errors. That is because inside of the transition system, it is trying to find a couple of components that we have since deleted. I'm assuming that those were just turning them off anyways, but we're going to need to track those down. So if we go cutscenes, minimize this, go screen transitions, go to skills, and look at some of these sequences for as we enter and exit these. Yeah, this was turning off the left and right trigger because I didn't want to delete them before, but we have now deleted them, so we cannot be referencing them in our sequences. We are dropping frames a little bit, it looks like. No more errors. Cool. All right, so we now have a category info box inside of here. We can get rid of SP from the ability toggle. Do we have... We do have ability specs for... That's for SP. We have one for stagger power. We're just not using it? Okay. Should just be able to do that, and we should be able to show the stagger of this ability. And lastly, we need one of these to show the stagger multiplier. Done. Impact. How do I make impact? Just change it to mult. What would be a 3-letter abbreviation for impact? Why does it feel like there should be one and I'm just not thinking of it? I don't know. Maybe it's like a 4-letter one. Could change it to crit. But that implies that this ability can crit outside of the stagger damage multiplier. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so I do not like the way this is set up. I think just stacking these stats on top of the name of the ability just looks bad. And I feel like the category should somehow be like above all of this information in some way. I have a button to find the skill prefab. I forgot that I set that up. Okay. Yeah, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do here. I'm just like pixel pushing while I'm trying to think. What's missing? Well, that broke that. Is that because they're like half pixel increments now? Well, it probably doesn't help that they're not correct height values on any of these. Man, it looks better at least. Yeah, this needs a whole UX pass. I think we have the information displaying. The only piece we're still missing is the crystals for each of these, because each of these have a crystal associated with them. Maybe these are supposed to go up along the right side. Instead of boxing this information in like this, maybe the category information should go at the top. And then the stats one can maybe go at the bottom instead. And maybe the ability info is supposed to go in between. So maybe this is supposed to go here, be a lot shorter, maybe extend a little bit beyond. And then each of these categories are supposed to just be related. I'm gonna hack this together real quick. This is gonna look awful. What if we just repurposed these setups? Is that crazy? And then this becomes crit. And it gets moved down. Like so. And then these all get updated to these pieces of text. In fact, this is not even this text value, it's the stat number now, if we use this other one for reference. And then we would just need display item components. What were they called? What was the name of these? Yeah, these have some awful names. I'm gonna rename them. So this is going to become stagger node, and that gets... Okay, I'm going to try and be as consistent as possible with these. So this becomes power for the crystal count. And then we get crystal count here and crystal count here. This becomes crit. This becomes stagger. We're going to need to go modify some stuff too, because we have the ability improvement nodes that are using old names now. Oh, wrong one. We want the infinite recharge variant. So these become standardized to be similarly named. Okay. And then we just want to swap the background color. Then this whole image can get pulled up a bit. So the main thing I don't like about this setup is the fact that the SP points, which is arguably the most important aspect of this, has kind of got pushed all the way up into the top right. But otherwise, I think this kind of at least puts the information together, which is, I don't know, good. Yeah, I don't like the -1 inversion stuff. I will need to remember to fix that by making a flipped version of this image. Or we just get a different image. What if we do a different one? Just do a simple box instead. Then this can be 1. And then these can all be 1. But then all my positioning is off. Yeah, the positioning on this is all over the place. Sure. At least the information is put together in a way that it is at least connected. Let's see if that even works. Nope. Oh, because we renamed stuff, but we haven't re-imported. Okay, so we're going to re-download the items, because I've renamed them. place. And then we're going to come in here. We're going to go into our tools. We're going to parse the items. Don't know why it's complaining about that. We're going to try that again. Okay, I'm going to guess that the database was not in a good state to be edited, and the parser caused it to blow up a little bit. Okay, those names now look correct. Try that again. Now, if the map ends up loading, or if the skill tree ends up loading here, I think we're basically showing all of the information. Yeah, this is not clear. Crit is still a bad term. I'm gonna have to figure out a better way to describe the damage multiplier for hitting enemies when they are stunned. Yeah. It gives the skill tree more room to breathe at the very least by shifting everything to the right. Okay, there's one more thing I want to do in terms of functionality. We've gotten everything displaying. I'm going to talk to Drixie about how we want to relay everything out, and we'll have to go look at some game references for examples of, like, you know, how do we lay out a skill tree in this way when we have so much categories and information that we need to be giving information about. So many different categories and pieces of information. But the last thing I want to do here is when we buy stuff right now, ooh, that's a fun bug. Yeah, I think it was just a copy and paste bug. This needed to be generic screen component, not data driven, so it just didn't know how to cast that information. But when we purchase a node, it just gets bought. And I've gotten feedback that feels bad, especially when it's not always clear what you're spending in order to purchase stuff. So I think I want to add a confirmation window to validate that you want to spend the associated SP and crystals with buying that node. Oh, still broken. Did I not just... What? Did I not just save that? Oh, there was two spots, refresh and terminate, that problem was happening. Okay. Now for a confirmation dialogue, I do have an example. I have never been happy with it, but I did build one a long time ago for our save load. Sorry, I just want to double... Okay, bug fixed on that. Cool. Actually, I want to see these stats increasing. Yeah, everything's updating correctly. Unity's upset about me holding control as a modifier for buying these things, but Okay, yeah, I'm seeing my stats go up. Cool. Confirmation window. So even when I use this debug command, I think that'll be a good test. How do we currently do this? If we go into the skill node screen, when we attempt to purchase, it checks to see if it's even valid to purchase this. And if it is valid, it returns true that it has been purchased, and then we refresh everything. And then we don't even let you go in here if that node is not available or unlocked. This all happens on submit. All right. So we want to add a confirmation window in between. Let's start by just getting the old one that I used for the save screen in here and see if it can work. 2-button confirmation screen with some argument data for what to display, as well as the results callback. Yeah, I can change what happens when you hit yes, and I can change the question and the confirmation text. Okay, let's see if we can just use this wholesale. Go into here. We will attempt to purchase. If yes. If the result is no, then we won't attempt to purchase. And then we'll leave it as, are you sure, I think? I guess we could customize it, make sure this works. Purchase. Well, yes, no, I think is maybe fine. Maybe the better thing to customize would be the message. Again, I think there's maybe a better version of this that displays a little bit more info about what's about to happen, but that'll require building a more specific confirmation screen. Is that all I have to do? All this time that I've been putting off setting this up? I just got to bring over that, like, 5 lines of code. Oh, interesting. Oh. That's a funny bug. So it's happening right now, even if I'm not allowed to purchase it. I bet you it's displaying it, but it's not in the right position. Yeah. We need to write a little bit of logic. Well, not logic, but we need to do a little bit of work here. So let's go find the screen transitions. In here, for screen transitions, if we look at the save, screen transitions for load for save, on open save menu, we turn on the save information, but there must be something where we're doing here, 2-button confirmation. Oh, that's in a separate section up here. Okay. So what does this do? This just turns it on? Yeah. But we're going to need to have it load from a specific location. Okay, so these currently exist in core, which is weird that this one is, but sure. But I'm going to add into skill a new folder for two button confirmation. Let's go steal the variant up here. Open this. We'll copy this. Come back down. Paste this into here. Under the skill section, we're going to add a new transition type. When we are going from closing the skill node screen and going to the two button confirmation screen, we want to perform the open button confirmation. And then when we go from the two button confirmation being closed to opening the node screen, we want to do the opposite of this. Which will be close. Okay. We want to go to the main transition manager. We're going to hit compile. It's going to generate those here. Those have been added. Basically, this is the true, like, actual list of transitions for every screen in the game. And we make these, like, sub ones so that it's easier to navigate and find information. But we have to go to this one and ask it to compile its list of all the little ones. Okay, so then in here, we just need to modify these. So close will turn it off. But we also need to move it. We can come back up here and look for a reference for how we move. UI move to position. And this is what we're looking for. Yeah. So on open, UI, we're just going to move it to an end position. The question is, I don't know where that's going to be. The reason we have to do this at all is because technically we move the camera around when we're transitioning between these screens. Like when the camera goes, or when the screen scrolls up and down, we're actually moving the camera that looks at this information. Oh, we don't even, I turned off the scroll completely, but technically the UI is still moving. Most of the time we do this in a very different way, but the skill screen we actually used to like show this slide up, slide down. But because of that, it means that this is all happening in some weird space offset from everything else. So if we start by just bringing this, say, I don't know, one screen width over and then one screen height down, that's going to be more than that. But you know what? Let's just start there. Do we see it anywhere on screen? To button. The components are turned on, so that's a good first step. It's up there. Okay, so we got the positioning a little wrong. Actually, can we just adjust it here? We can. Somewhere in that realm? Sure. So weirdly, it's 0 on the X and negative 540. Okay, cool. So that is working, quote unquote. If I hold control, it will actually purchase it. The main problem is that we're doing this immediately on submit. I guess instead we should be attempting the purchase, but then loading this information up here. A little bit off. We want to grab everything except for the actual open and put it inside of this return call. So then if the node is unlocked and not available, which means purchased, I believe, then we will allow you to get the dialog box to purchase it. What is attempt to purchase doing? I guess this is checking to see whether or not you actually have enough items. We kind of want to check that beforehand, because otherwise it's kind of confusing if we bring up that pop-up to purchase, but then you don't have enough skill points or enough items. Do we ever use this anywhere else? Nope. Can purchase. Exact same setup, except instead of doing it all at the same time and actually unlocking, we will just return true or false. Cool. Then in here, if it's not purchasable, we won't let you bring up this dialog box either. We'll still do attempt to purchase and not change any of this functionality. It'll mean it'll do this check twice, but I'm not super concerned about that. It's just more safe, maybe slightly inefficient. Prevent some sort of weird shenanigans where maybe you get multiple selected at the same time or something. We are dropping frames again. Okay, cool. Well, I can't purchase anything because I do not have the crystals or the SP to purchase this, but if I hit control, it will let me attempt to purchase it. And if I hold control, it will actually allow me to buy it. If I don't hold control, then I'm not overriding the functionality. So if I hit control to bring up the pop-up and then hit yes without holding control, it won't actually purchase. So that's all working correctly. So then the question is there a way that we can get some custom information in between here? So instead of saying just purchase, could it be more like spend with a question mark and then maybe a little like blurb in the middle with, you know, the crystal that you're buying? So like 1 power crystal in this case and 1 SP. Yeah, I feel like there's some sort of info that we could put in between, and that'll mean making a custom button, a custom to button, but Drixie, I don't know about looks much better. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it is definitely showing more information. Okay, I think that's good enough for today, though. I'm going to keep working on stuff off camera. There's more cutscenes to be built, but we have at least got all the information being displayed, which we were not doing before. So we are showing all the different node pieces, like your stagger power and your staggered damage multiplier, which I'm going to call crit for now. We're showing all of the different stats, and then if you actually get the different crystals, it'll show the crystal for the associated stat here, so you can say which ones you have and which ones you don't. And then if I come into the pause screen, we're also showing this information here as well. Perhaps we'd also want to have some sort of like breakdown of your crystals generically on this screen as well, but I'm gonna call it here. We've been streaming for our standard 2 hours, which is as long as I like to go in one sitting, and we will be back at some point. Saturday, some point. I don't know when Saturday, but I'll find some time to stream, probably Saturday evening. I'm gonna guess somewhere around 4, but I'm not entirely sure. And then Sunday will be the last stream before we go back to work on the 19th for real work, and this hobby project that we've been working on for 4 weeks will continue, but we will be much slower after that. But that's it for me.